Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called The Guardians Explore, and is from designer and self-publisher Jonathan Ruland. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this preview video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page. I'm going to have a link at the bottom of your screen now, and also at the end of the video, and down in the description section of the video. That's going to take you to the official Kickstarter project page. Find out more information than I could possibly tell you here, and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, what is The Guardians Explore? This is a competitive game for 2 to 5 players. You all play these kids who are living in this town of Arthur'sburg, when usually you're just, frolicking around, having a good time, pretending to do all these adventures and things like that, and one day the adventure becomes real. There are these monsters coming out of all the different areas of the town, and some of them are like orcs, and some of them are robots, and some of them are spiders and demons, and all these different things. Zombies, of course. There's got to be zombies, and they are flooding into the town, and you have to go and take them out. You have to take out all the different monsters and get stronger, learn skills, build your pile of skills and attacks that you're going to use against them, and then eventually fight the big bad boss monsters, or 2 boss monsters potentially, and try to end the threat once and for all. You go to different locations, use special abilities, get items, all of these different things. Let me go ahead and show you a quick overview of the game with a prototype version of the game. So a lot of what you see here might change in the final version. This is just to give you a taste of what the game is like. Then we're going to come back. I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, let me give you a quick run through of The Guardians Explore. This is a competitive game for 2 to 5 players. You play kids in a neighborhood that is being besieged by these different monstrous forces, and you need to save your town and also your loved ones from all these different creatures. You're going to have 2 boss monsters that you're going to randomly select at the beginning of the game, or if you're playing with... a lot of the rules I'm going to explain here are actually for the apprentice, can be in apprentice mode, which is where it's a little bit easier. You only have 1 boss instead of 2, and things like that, but I'm going to teach the full game for now. So you'll have 2 random bosses, a blue one and a red one. Each player is going to get their own character card with a couple of power markers. Someone's going to randomly get the Trailblazer token, determining who acts first in the turn order. You'll get your own little sleeping fort. And you'll get 2 secret goal cards as well. You're also going to get a bunch of cards, but we'll get back to deck construction in a minute. You're going to make the game board of the different areas in town. You'll have different tiers here in different colors. You'll also have the home card up front, and these can also change based on whether it's apprentice mode or not. Over here you have the Guardians mat, which also can have an apprentice side too. You have little wound markers here, and this will actually keep track of the different steps of the game. So you are actually going to start off in setup, and then you're going to go to deck creation, the warm-up. Then you're going to go through a series of battles culminating in a boss battle, the first boss battle. And then you're going to keep going. You'll have the third wave of monsters come out, more battles, and ending with the final boss battle, and then you go to scoring. Whenever you see this symbol, these are trophy points. The goal of the game is to have the most trophy points, more than the other players, at the end of the game. Usually you gain these from defeating monsters. And by the way, you may notice that out there in the town, I keep wanting to say village because it is kind of fantasy themed, but out there in all the areas of the town, you have the first wave of monsters, which you will randomly populate on each of these cards. We'll get back to that in a minute. Now over here you have the monster match. You're going to have the other waves of cards of monsters that you'll just leave there for right now, the second wave and the third wave. And also the bonus cards that you may gain when it comes time to fight the 2 boss monsters. Notice that they're also color-coded blue or red. And just to also show you the different characters in the game, notice they also have a little standee, which they're going to use to flit about the battlefield. So I guess you can't actually see their portraits that well. Something like that. There you go. And then lastly, up at the top here, you have a little helpful playmat just to keep the Guardians cards here, which are going to be the cards that you draft during the course of the game to make your deck stronger. I already kind of did that, but I'll explain it in a little more detail. So that's a quick run through of how the setup is going to go. So then you're going to go straight into the warm-up. So a lot of the game is based on deck construction. You are building a deck which you are going to take into the battles and the boss battles that are to come throughout the rest of the game. And so you need to make a strong deck to do so. Now every player is going to start off with some weaker cards. First you're going to have, focus in a bit here, you're going to have the Explore card, which is going to generate 2 energy and let you draw a card. That's about all that it does. Energy is very important for being able to kick off the abilities of your other cards. But then you also are going to start off with 5 of these Practice Swings cards. Now these also generate energy, but more importantly for at least these cards, they also generate combat strength, which you use to fight the monsters. But again, these are weaker cards, but you just need to start somewhere. Now amongst the cards that you're going to draft, you have several different things. You're going to have magical creatures and familiars. This is actually a super card. The way the draft will work is that you actually will start off with 2 super cards, and then you are going to draft have one draft of the Guardians cards, which will give you 7 cards. Then you're going to do another draft, which will give you another 7 cards. If you're not familiar with drafting, it's like in many games, you're going to everyone's going to get randomly dealt a hand of 7 cards. You'll pick one, pass the rest of the cards to your left, and keep doing so until there are no cards left. And then you're going to do it all over again in the opposite order, passing to your right. And then you'll have those 14 cards. So amongst those cards, sorry, I may have lost my place. You will, let's see, where's the super card? There it is. Amongst those cards, you're also dealt out 2 super cards at the beginning of the game. Once you get all your cards in hand, you're only going to choose one of the super cards and get rid of the other. And this is kind of the focal point of your deck. You can build your deck around it. So the Earth Spirit here, up in the top, it tells you how much energy you need to use to actually use this card. And then it'll have the type up in the top corner. And what he says is, and down here it also has types, familiar and magical creature. And this one says, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put one of those cards into your hand and discard the rest. During your attack phase, gain a combat for each non-item card that you have in play. And lots of other cards, so I'll just show you some examples. You have the Wolf Pup, who gives you an energy, you get to draw a card. You have a attack card, Mastering Slash. This is actually a skill card. You may trash a card from your hand or discard pile. If you do, gain 3 combat. Remember, the trashing a card can be very good because trashing a card means removing it from your deck permanently. You can get rid of things like Practice Swings, which are really weak. Another familiar, you have the Caterpillar. There's the Daze attack. During your battle phase, you gain a combat for each weapon card you have in play, including this one. Caterpillar again. The Potions. Shields, you have these item cards which are really going to help you out. So some of the cards are persistent, meaning that they're going to stay in play and continue to give you continuing effects. So you can discard a shield to ignore overrun effects this round. If a item would affect you, you may trash shield to ignore it, or a super would affect you. Then you have Wolf Pup, Caterpillar, and Tiger Cub. I'm sorry, actually, just to go back for 1 second, what that symbol is actually special cards. There are certain cards that will interact with the other players, usually in negative ways. Remember, this is a competitive game, so something like the shield will actually protect you from those effects. Now, once everyone has their deck of cards, they've drafted everything, then you're going to whittle it down a bit. That's where you're going to get rid of one of your super cards back to the game box, and you're going to discard 4 of the Guardian cards that you drafted. You can't discard your starting cards, the Practice Swings or the Explorer card, just the cards that you drafted. You just get rid of those based upon the super that you have. So you want to kind of focus your deck on a particular type of combat strategy if you can. At this time, also, you're going to get your secret quest. Now, these are things that you can try to attain during the course of the game, and at the end of the game, you'll be able to get trophy points based on that. So it's not necessary to do, but it could really help you win the game. So, for instance, Warlock Slayer here says that at the end of the game, if you have more Warlock trophies than anyone else, you gain 4 trophies. Warlocks being a type of monster that you're going to fight. Then you have Robot Slayer, again, the same thing. At the end of the game, if you have more robot trophies than anyone else, you get 6 trophy points because robots are a bit tougher to kill. Alright, so once you get done with that, then it's time to battle. You're going to move the marker down to here to go to the first battle phase. Now, how this is going to work is that in turn order, starting with whoever has a Trailblazer token, you are going to pick your player pawn and you're going to go to a safe location. Now, at the start of the game, the only safe location is home. So you get to go to the home location, and when you go there, you get to do the special effect that is listed there. And like I said on the first round, that's the only place that most people are going to, I think everyone is going to be able to go to. This says you get to draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, and then you may trash 1 or 2 cards in your discard pile. And this is a way for you to get rid of your weaker practice swings if you really want to. So let's just go ahead and say that everyone is here for this example. Okay, so the next thing that happens is the power-up phase, and this happens sort of simultaneously. First off, you're going to look at any monster cards that are out in the field, and you're going to see which ones have overrun effects. So actually, this robot down here does have an overrun effect that says if there are 2 or more robots, players must discard 1 card. So you're going to be on the lookout for things like that. If you do have any overrun effects, those are going to apply right this second. But either way, then you're also going to look at any items that you may have that have persistent effects, and like the shield that I showed you, and those effects will apply now as well, for the most part. But barring those 2 things, then you're going to go directly into playing your cards from your hand. And if you're experienced players, you can do this simultaneously, but effectively, you are taking the cards that you have and you are playing them in order to gain as much energy, to play more cards, to gain power, to fight the monsters, but also to put out damage markers, which are going to weaken the monsters and lower their combat threshold. Oh, and I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that just to clarify, once you've built your deck, you draw a hand of 4 cards until it gets to be later in the game when you may have different special abilities. That it's going to, but your starting hand size will be 4, so that's how many you're going to shuffle up and draw from your deck. Now, before you proceed on to the actual battle phase, players have a chance to play surprise cards, which are these things that I mentioned earlier that have this symbol up in the top left corner, and these are going to affect all the other players. So, for instance, the butterfly here says that you can choose 1 non-surprise card from the Guardian trash pile and add it to your discard pile. If you have a caterpillar in play, you may trash a non-super card each other player has in play. If you do, trash butterflies. So this can kind of be a nasty thing to do to the other players, and this is your chance to do so before you go into the actual battling phase of trying to fight all the monsters out there. So then you get into the battle phase. Now, and if any of your cards gave you these damage tokens, then you're able to dispense them out to the monsters that you wish to do so. So let's just say you want to weaken off the zombie club or the zombie sisters. That would be your opportunity to do so with the tokens that you've accrued. Then, this is in turn order, by the way. You select a location with a monster or monsters that have less or equal combined combat value as whoever the current player is, and then you move your guardian figure to that spot. So let's say I do that, and well, let's just say I want to go for the warlock, and I've got enough combat in order to do so. Then, assuming I do, I get to take that warlock as a trophy, barring any kind of special abilities it may have, which in this case it says, put this into play for the rest of the game. Persistent +1 combat, this card cannot be stolen or tried. Okay, but anyways, I'm able to take that card, I'll gain it as a trophy, and now I actually get to set up my little sleeping fort here, showing that this card will not spawn more monsters, and it's actually a safe place for me. And now I can actually use the special ability of the garage from here on out, which says, during the first part of this phase, which is gain 3 cards from the Guardian supply into your hand, discard 3 cards, and I can trash 1 to 3 cards in my discard pile. So it's a better version of the home. It's also possible to deal enough damage markers to a creature just to kill it outright if you want to do that, instead of just weakening it. If you do that, then you do the same thing. You're going to be able to take the monster as a trophy. After everyone has had a chance to do this, then you're going to refill with new monsters, any non-safe location where there's no more monsters left on it, but you can't invade spots where where you have built up one of your sleeping forts. Only the places which are now safe, only places that have no monsters but are empty. Then you'll basically reset everything, reset your power level on your character card, all these different things. Draw back up to 4 cards, and if you run out of cards in your deck, you'll reshuffle, and then you move the marker down. You're going to do it all over again. Now, eventually, you are going to go through enough battles that you're going to fight one of the boss monsters. You have the first boss monster in a normal game, then eventually you'll get down to the second one. So let me go ahead and show you what the boss monster cards look like, just so you know what to expect. So here we have Kiera, who is the Orc Chieftain, and you see that she's got way more combat power. And that's actually times the number of players, by the way, just so you know, with her type as well. And she does something to you right away when she shows up. In this case, players gain a practice swing into their hand. Now, you engage in combat with the boss the same way you would during the rest of the game when you're just engaging with the normal monsters, but of course, it's so powerful that you really need to team up in order to defeat it. This is like another location that you can go to and interact with. Now, assuming you are able to successfully defeat the boss, then you're going to get whatever's in the gold box, and that's actually going to help whichever player was able to contribute to it. So this one says, players who dealt 14 combat or more gain an apprentice patch. If they dealt 20 or more, they gain a guardian badge instead. But unfortunately, these are the boss rewards, by the way. If you fail to defeat it, then people who did not contribute are going to get hurt. So in this case, it's all players gain 2 practice swings. Players who didn't battle Kiara retreat a random trophy from their highest wave and then flip over the home card, which is going to make it into ruins, which is no good. So let me go ahead and show you those badges. Like there's the apprentice patch, which is worth 4 trophy points, and the guardian badge, which is worth 6 trophy points. So obviously you want to contribute as much as you can, and hopefully everyone contributes enough to actually defeat the boss to get the good reward. Regardless of the outcome from now on, at this point in the game, you are going to have third wave monsters, which means that you'll fill up the empty spaces of monsters that you killed in this round with third waves that actually start face down and then get flipped up during the next battle phase. And from then on out, you're always going to replenish with the third wave monsters. Then eventually you're going to get to the final boss battle, which is going to be significantly more difficult. So for instance, here we have Kevin, the Arch Warlock. But just to show you some of the other bosses you might run into during the course of the game, you have Patient Zero, the first zombie, and Arak Nesh, the Spider King. All of these are sort of leading their types of monsters. So there's spiders, zombies, things like that. Robots. There's Zarkoth, the Pit Fiend, and Purify A1, the robot prototype. Those are the different types of bosses you might come across in the game, and they all have their own sort of nasty minions that get stronger as you go on. Like there's an orc soldier as opposed to like the orc grunts that you may see if I still have them out here somewhere or other. Yeah, there they go, the orc grunts, which are much, much more difficult to take care of, these orc soldiers. Although if you manage to defeat them, you actually get to place damage on all orcs. So that's pretty much a quick run through of the game. Your goal is to get through all the boss monsters, and if you are able to do so and take out the last boss, you go straight to scoring, count up all of your trophy cards, all of the achievements that you were able to succeed, if you were able to succeed on your secret quest, and also any of the rewards you gained for helping to defeat the bosses. All of these things you'll add together. Whoever has the most trophy points is the winner. That's a quick run through of the Guardians Explore. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. The theme is very strong in the Guardians Explore because, you know, you're taking control of these kids and you're going off on this wild adventure. There's a dime a dozen for these fantasy games nowadays, but to have a fantasy game that sort of links to these real world kids and, you know, how, you know, reality is sort of changing for them and everything that they knew is changing, that's something that's more accessible to gamers, I think. You know, sort of doesn't make the game feel as sort of old fogey-ish as a lot of other fantasy games do. It's not really generic. So many fantasy games just have this sort of generic feel to them, and especially since this game, you know, wants to be a family weight game, I think that that's very important to be able to be accessible to all these different generations of gamers. And I think that the theme is very strong when it is tied to the mechanisms of the game. Fighting the boss monsters, going to all these different locations which are being flooded with monsters, these different waves of monsters coming out, each with their own nasty abilities that may kick off, and all of the overrun abilities, all of these different things, and you have to get spells, and you have to get special abilities to help yourself out, and the super abilities, and the familiars that can help you out. All of these things feel very thematic and tie into the theme very well. I mean, right down to the fact where your home can get destroyed if things go poorly with the boss monster and it turns into ruins, and all of these different things, ruins even. And so the theme ties together tightly to the mechanisms, which is very, very important if you want to keep people engaged with the game. Talking about those mechanisms, though, it's very interesting because much of the game is battling. You're going through these different battles, fighting these monsters, trying to work your way up to the boss monster or boss monsters if you play in the higher level. That's important too. This game at an apprentice level. If it's too much for the casual gamers, younger gamers that you're playing with, play at the apprentice level, then work your way up. But anyway, sorry for the digression. So you're going through mostly battles for much of the game, but before you can get to that point, you have to do the deck construction ahead of time, the warm-up, which will let you cater the deck to your standards. Now, there is some randomness there because you're drafting cards, obviously 2 different drafts, but then you get to mill out the cards that you're not that interested in. You're still stuck with the weaker cards, like the practice swings, but maybe you can get rid of those later. So it's just about making the deck yours as much as you possibly can in the beginning, picking the super that you really want to be the focal point of your deck, together with keeping in mind what your secret objectives are and how those are going to help you complete those based on the monsters that are out on the field. So you construct that deck as best as you possibly can, and then go out into the wild, so to speak, and try to make it work for you through all these series of battles. But as you battle, as you make locations safe, as you go out to these locations and use their abilities, which might let you get more cards from the Guardian deck and mill out other weaker cards, you start to really own your deck. So it's kind of like a deck building game in a sense, but it's something that happens gradually as you play, and you really have to work to make that happen. But that is, again, another thematic element, because you are fighting these monsters and going to these different locations and freeing them and making them safe with your little bed fort, and hoping that they will give you more skills and make you stronger and make you a better warrior for the trials and tribulations that are to come. So again, strong theme connected to the mechanisms, and it's an interesting mechanism because of that whole deck construction over a period of time, getting yourself ready, sealing yourself up for that boss battle, which is very tough. And it's interesting because even though it is a competitive game, you are encouraged to help as much as possible, and everyone wants you to help because then everyone gets better rewards. But even if you get the failure, that's usually going to be something that's pretty bad for everybody, but much, much worse for the people who don't contribute at all. So you're all encouraged to chip in and help, because it's going to help you no matter what. But sometimes it's just not going to be as possible to help as much as you can. And there, so you set yourself up for the next time, possibly, and just take that hit. Now, you're not going to be out of the game if you fail miserably in the first boss battle. You still have another boss battle to come, but the monsters get tougher and therefore might be better off for you in the rewards that you get and the skills that you get. So it's a whole interesting thing going on, and again, you have this cool theme of being these kids going off on this grand adventure that really makes that work, and it's going to make it work for a lot of different gamers. Younger gamers, is a good gateway game to get them up to even more complicated games, because even though there does seem to be a lot going on in this game, it's not too complicated, and it's very easy to learn and easy to get into. A lot of that having to do with the fact that it has a story behind it that will let you, stay engaged as people explain the rules to you. So because of all these things, because of the theme, it really is accessible to a wide array of gamers. And if you are one of those gamers, if this sounds like something that interests you, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page and find out even more, because I can't possibly tell you all the information about the game, but you can find out more there and hopefully consider backing it. I'm going to have a link at the bottom of your screen now and also down in the description section of the video, and those will take you to the page. Thank you so much for watching. That was the Guardians Explore from designer Jonathan Ruland. Thanks so much. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.